All right, it's 5:31. I will call to order this regular meeting of the Waste Reduction District of Monroe County Citizens Advisory Committee. This is the third Thursday, July the 18th, 2024 at 5:31 p.m. Will the vice chair please call roll?
Yes, John Arnold. Present. Matt Austin.
Present.
Bill Goins.
Present.
Brad Lucas. Paul White. Joseph Bryant is present. We do have a quorum.
Today's agenda was distributed by email and Dropbox on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. Are there any objections to adopting the agenda as distributed? Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. The approval of meeting minutes. The minutes from March 2024 regular meeting have been distributed by email and Dropbox on Monday, June 17th, 2024. Are there any corrections?
I do have one note. There was in the very first subject, the reports from the district rebranding, there was just a typo in the first sentence. It says we are still finishing up new signate. It probably should be signage.
Oh, signage, okay.
Yeah. Related to the rebranding. That was it.
Okay, okay. Are there any other further corrections? If there are no further corrections, the minutes are approved as corrected. All right, reports from officers. Say name or Tom.
A whole lot. I'm trying to think of what all happened since the last CAC meeting. I guess that a storm blew through since the last CAC meeting. That did impact three of our facilities, Ward Road, Dillman Road, and South Walnut, but we pretty much recovered. Ward Road was hit the hardest, and we did request and get approval from a Rogers group. We removed some trees beyond the fence line, had bluestone tree come out and clear the damage that the storm created, and then also inspect the trees around the perimeter of the facility and remove anything that they thought was in danger of coming down if we had any other significant winds or storms. So hopefully, because that storm was not the first time this year a tree had fallen at that site.
Oh.
So we said we're going to try and get that in the bud. Let's see, for those that aren't aware, Kathy Martin is retiring in October, our controller. And her position has been advertised. It's on our website, on the Indeed website. Also have some social media and word of mouth stuff going on. So, obviously, if anybody knows any potentially interested candidates that might qualify for that, you can direct them to me or to our website. The job description and instructions to apply are out there. So certainly interested in candidates. The idea, it will take some action from the board, but the executive committee is agreeable. We're going to try to bring the new person on 2 to 3 weeks before Kathy actually leaves, so we have to have some overlap there and get it. Currently pays $28.19 an hour, and after the budget gets done, I can tell you what it'll pay first of the year.
Is that in pesos?
That would benefit the district if it was, but no, we pay in US dollars. Additionally, we also do have a replacement site operator position open, which is one of our on-call fill-in positions for the recycling centers. So when people are sick, on vacation, people we can call in to cover shifts that we need covered at the recycling centers. So we have those two positions open, and we're actively seeking candidates for it. If it's a CAC, we'll guess, appease me. We did have our budget meeting with DLGF this morning, and I just assume we report on that during the joint meeting with the board president, so I don't have to be overly redundant. So beyond that, things are moving on as normal. We don't really have any issues going on right now.
So quick question, when you say, does that, not repeating yourself, not being redundant, does that mean that the new business,
No, we still need, we still need to review the budget, but,
Okay.
and depending on that discussion, there may be things that come up, that came out at that workshop this morning, but I do just a blanket general full report on what came out of the workshop this morning. I would just assume do that with a joint meeting with the board as president as well.
Thanks for that clarification. Any questions?
I do actually have one, if I may. Has the, or I guess, how has the Lao, I guess, whole process change been going, including the, I think, digital timesheets was the biggest?
Well, yeah, and the electronic timekeeping was not in, that was a little, we waited a few weeks to roll that out after we got the last one done. The transition to Lao, in general, has gone fairly well. I think there's been a few issues that Kathy and I weren't expecting. A part of it is discovering, some things that probably were not entered correctly in the old software. So when they, pulled the data over, well, it's like, what do I do with that? And so, Lau has said this is a very, very common occurrence for them. And when they do these transitions, and we've already advised the executive committee, we at some point before the end of the year, we will probably wind up just doing an adjustment entry to get everything balanced, just because there are discrepancies in there that, we may never find where the error could have been 10 years ago. And so, and also that's a very common occurrence when they do these transitions. But we're going to, put that off as long as we can and still try to track down where the discrepancies exist and correct everything that we can confirm and correct so that the adjustment is as little as possible.
And that's the overall accounting software.
Yeah. So we're hoping to have, an adjustment that's under $25,000 and, annualized $3 million budget. So for how many years? It's a drop in the bucket, but it's still not ideal, but they said it's common. And so we'll just have to live with it and move on. SBOA is used to it happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Chair has no report. Any questions from the chair? All right, then we will move on to, were there any special committees reports? No. No special orders, no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. Our first bit of new business is a update report from Garden Quest featuring Ellie Spear on some organic waste options and advancements that they are working on to hopefully help address the loss of earth keepers and start addressing organic waste in the city and county. If you'd like to come up, I can sit here if you'd like, or you can sit on the face. Space.
What's better?
This is fine.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for having me. We are, so how this all started as you introduced them to Bokashi at all?
Yes, I've introduced you to Bokashi.
Okay, so we.
And full disclosure, Ellie is my sister.
Are you sure?
Yeah. That's what our parents tell us. We're both born blue.
Okay, all right.
Yes, we started experimenting with Bokashi over 2 years ago. And last year we saved over a ton of waste just from 7 neighbors dumping off their food waste to us. Upon having them drop it off, I applied for an Indiana Department of Environmental grant, a management grant. And in that grant, we asked to try to get neighborhood compost captains going to do the same thing that Garden Quest was doing in the Cup Ranchers.
Compost captains.
Compost captains. The idea is there's one central person who says, I can, with the size of my property and how much soil I would like to keep on property, I would like to invite 3 neighbors. I said I can invite up to 10 neighbors. So the idea is if you are a compost captain, you are taking the lead on teaching other neighbors about bokashi and partnering with them to keep the turn the food waste into a valuable product for the partnership or for the person who is the compost captain. So the grant gave us funding to give the compost captains buckets for where they would not have to pay, and the give and take is that they have to find at least 3 neighbors, and then they use the buckets for training for themselves. They can share those buckets with their partners, and then try to divert as much food waste as possible. This has been going well. We have 2 other neighborhoods on board, and we had multiple families in the community that were planning on taking our training. However, we found out that we were no longer able to do the training in a neighborhood. So I've been looking for other sites, and we have 4 sites that are actually interested, but they're saying, where are we going to get the supplies, the funds, because my grant was just for neighborhoods. And so there's interest in doing it at the community orchard. And having this as a training site, potentially where community orchard members drop off or other community members drop off. There's interest at First United Methodist Church with the People's Market. The church is backing this. They already bought a big hoop house, and they have lots of funding coming in to put in raised beds, and they want to be able to create their own soil there. So there's interest there. They're looking at another grant, a $75,000 grant from the USDA. That's what they're probably going to apply for. We just don't know if they're going to get it, but I'm just sort of telling you that there's this interest. There's also, I reached out to Lotus because they're looking for a solution, and they want to see a proposal, but they're interested potentially, the place, how they'd like to start would be with Lotus in the Park. But once again, it's how do we fund this? Because my grant funds were just for neighborhood compost captains. But they're interested in trying to do that. And I see a potential expansion if it's successful there to, if we were to get buckets for the community, they could be used at different festivals throughout the year. And then the idea would be, well, where does all this stuff go? How does it work? That would be through Garden Quest would be directing volunteers. That's what we're about, is teaching students how to lower their environmental impact. And so they would be a part of a volunteer force. And then the other thing, concept, potential would be to use this food waste as a resource in community gardens. If we could connect with the city and actually dig it in the fall, like Lotus is October 3rd through 5th, you go to the community gardens, you dig it into the beds, and then come spring, the beds are all amended. So it'd be, closing the cycle and diverting a lot of food waste from the land. That's one thing. And then I also have, this is not Monroe County at all, but just to see that the Uplands region is interested in this too. I'm in September actually going to teach 200 families in Orange County. I'm introducing bokashi.
Region.
But so we're a part of the Uplands region. There's
That's a-
8 counties,
the
9
geographic areas.
They're economic geographic regions of the state of
You
Indiana.
have to get like the Reach of Upland Brewery.
So,
Alaska.
yeah, so they, yeah, so there's like 10 different regions that Indiana has designated for helping each other, help the counties working together for economic prosperity and to teach. And so we're part of the Uplands region. So
How much direct sunlight do you need for this to work?
it's all underground, so 0. Does the geothermal capacity of the earth help? Absolutely. Just like, I mean, the worms are going to move faster when the earth is warmer. So you will see the pace slows down in the wintertime, but there's still activity happening because you're using that geothermal energy.
And you can use this on flat or sloped ground?
So there's 3 ways to deal with the bokashi cake. One is to put it directly into a garden bed, and within 3 months, it's gone. It's now just soil. You can also bury it by digging a pit, and that's what the church, First United Methodist, and the community orchards, like we've already looked at sites on those locations specifically to dig the pits, and they have to layer it with soil. And then once it's grown, then this is putting it directly already into your compost pile. You can put it directly on top. It's going to take a little while for the anaerobic and aerobic to work together, but those are the 3 options. The easiest by far is just putting it directly into a growing bed.
This is after you pulled the juice out.
This is after you pull the juices, after the 2 weeks where it's been in the bucket, you pull the fertilizer out, and now it's fully pickled and ready to be used.
But I've been having thoughts of it throughout my place. I want you to come out. Let's talk.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, so, and that fertilizer could be used in county grounds, city grounds for grass, for trees, like there's I see a lot of benefit for it. They're 5-gallon buckets that actually have a spigot, a sieve.
Oh, so
And
there's a specific,
Yes,
Specific work.
a specific one, and there's different companies out there, but we've found like the one that we like, that works the best, the easiest.
we get,
Yes.
at our recycling center, South Walnut, we have a business that, not every day, but with some regularity, I mean, we get pallets of 3-gallon buckets. But they're just
They're just-
3-gallon buckets with a lid and a handle. And then we also have a number of our Green Business Network clients that are restaurants that we get pickle buckets and stuff.
That would be, I mean, we actually priced it out to see if we could buy all the individual components and make it less expensive. It's actually not because of that specialized sieve that sits sort of like a tabletop sifter that sits on top.
That separates the
And
food from
separate.
the liquid.
And you also have a pressure plate, and just to design all that stuff, it's less expensive. Because we like to try to show students also, can you make it yourself? And it just doesn't make sense. So that would be the cost. And then the only reoccurring cost would be the culture, the inoculant. And for a family of 4, we've sort of figured out the most, unless you're having parties every day, would be $50 but a year. So it's much less expensive than what Earth Keepers was charging, and it's a much faster process, and it's black and white. And
I just, this might be something we're talking about, because, we come up with the right proposal to take to the district board, similar to what we did with the Back to Earth program. District might agree to some initial funding to kick off a pilot and get you up and running until it can be sustainable.
And the concept is we want to be trained. Ours is a train the trainer. I don't want to be Earth Keepers. I want to teach. So it's this decentralized, let's get a bunch of small pods going in. We're one big network, and we can be the support team for, all the questions. But
Roadblocks.
yeah, but I do all kinds of pH testing. I found that even with teaching my neighbors how to do this, like them doing it by themselves, I'm still coming in at the right pH where they're killing all the pathogens, nothing, like we have never the pH has never been wrong. So that makes me feel good that we've been doing it with our neighbors over a year and a half. Yeah, over a year and a half. And they've still not screwed it up. So which I think is good because, and I have all ages. I mean, I have 85-year-olds doing it. I have, 30-year-olds. So people have been able with a 15-minute, this is how you do it. This is the bucket. This is the system. You're going to be my partner. They can do it, which I think is also nice. I've had little kids do it too. So schools can do this.
The other thing that struck me, Matt and Joe, I mean, the framework of that sounds almost identical to what our Organics Waste Task Force is talking about doing with organic, just with traditional composting. Going into a neighborhood, trying to find, an HOA that just has neighborhood property, public property, or a neighbor or a resident with enough yard, all host the pile. How do you bring their stuff to?
Yeah, and this would work really well in apartments, condominiums, because that bucket, like I was just talking to a neighbor today, and she was saying, I keep it in my kitchen. It doesn't smell. I can't.
I mean, you said that, after you pull the fertilizer off, that stuff can go in. I mean, is this something that, we could go to a neighborhood and set this up and do both bokashi and the traditional composting that would incorporate the leaves and grass?
Yes.
You have to. The bokashi is specifically for food waste. It takes,
Right.
and you.
But you can do the bokashi and then take the solids out of the
Yeah, you
bucket.
can put it in the compost.
Put it in compost.
Yes, and it actually accelerates that.
So maybe there's a way to, merge those two if you can find a neighborhood.
And I think
Right.
I might have an ideal
And the bokashi
position for
takes a little less time, a little less space
Mhm.
than the traditional composting. So
Yeah.
people might be more interested in that, but if we could merge them together and
Yeah.
And on that note, Kona,
Oh, Kona, I just spoke to the president yesterday and he said he was very interested in me presenting and said he thinks he would have plenty of neighborhoods that, Kona is the,
it's the
Community of
neighborhood.
Neighborhood Associations.
Okay.
The President's Law Neighborhood
Yeah.
Association.
So there's 66 neighborhoods in Monroe County, and this is their centralized hub for presenting things to the city.
Is this like the older neighborhoods that don't have an HOA? Or is it all the HOAs?
No, it's, I don't know if there's
Mix and
HOA.
match.
I think it's a mix and match, but the idea is we have, that he says that they've been wanting this kind of solution as well. They've been talking about it in Kona. So I think there's a lot of people talking and, a mixture of things I think is great.
This month's Kona meeting was canceled because of the storm.
what storm?
But that may also be open with the Organic Waste Task Force to potentially doing the survey, putting that out, so.
Yeah, so you'll answer more questions?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because I gotta go, but
I mean,
is that good?
I'd be
Okay.
interested in, getting involved with some of your meetings with Kona or something like that. And if Kashi's what everybody wants to do and that's it, that's fine, but
You can
if
integrate
we
both
can
of them.
kind of gauge interest in, can we do all the organic waste in combination with the bokashi, then, that's something that the district would certainly be interested in getting involved in and helping get started.
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Representative. Joe?
I do, yeah. Somebody mentioned that the funding was received for the neighborhood program.
Yep.
That there were 2 neighborhoods that were on board, but that you were unable to do training for the neighborhood.
Yeah, we had to stop doing training because the city says that we're not allowed to do any sort of urban ag education inside our home or on our physical property.
Okay, that's the part.
So say it again.
The city code does not allow us to do any indoor training or training on our property, education whatsoever.
So you need to have stuff
What
at my
code?
place.
It doesn't
Give
say,
you a citation.
oh, yeah, we've had violations. We have our meeting with the BZA.
Oh, they busted.
Oh, yeah, we have a meeting with BZA on next week. Because it's Karen's.
Oh, and I don't know what kind of, setup and stuff you need. I want to look at city code because we're in the city limits too, but the district has a large education room
Right.
available.
It's because we're R2 residential. So
Oh.
other mixed uses likely totally
We
fine.
probably could certainly look at something about making that training room in the administration office available.
Yeah,
for this stuff.
that's what Garden Quest wants to do. They want to train the trainers and just spread
Yeah, I
it.
mean, unless you need to be out there doing hands-on stuff for your training. I mean, if it's just the class, if there's just a classroom portion of
Well,
it.
it would basically be people bringing their food waste. And we have the buckets and we would show them how to layer it. You need the outdoor portion because then once the cake is done, then we want to show people the 3 different options of how to do it. But if we can get, the community orchard just has to speak to the city arborist and one other person to get approval, and they say they usually do. And then we're just waiting to find out if,
We're not
with the church. And then we want to, with this momentum, we want to talk to other churches. Because we know that St. Charles, it was mentioned during a meeting with People's Market, St. Charles, and I think maybe Rogers, they were talking about putting out the call to those communities. Those communities are interested because of the food or the garden or that they're building at First United Methodist. And so that entire community wants to bring their food waste. And so this is essentially the start of what we've been talking about previously and with the Organic Waste Task Force of a decentralized model.
Well, I just know, I mean, I would certainly be open to, making the South Walnut facility and that training room
Okay.
available for that. And, we might even be able to identify some outdoor space that we could clear off and free up
Okay.
for that portion of it.
That would be ideal.
Just make sure we're not running afoul of any city codes.
I'm not in the city.
And ideally, it would be a purchase of buckets with putting them together because it takes a while to make sure they're watertight or sealed with a spigot. It's about $80 per bucket. So we're thinking for like something like Lotus, it'd be somewhere around 50 buckets. So that'd be about a $4,000 initial cost. But those buckets are just reused over and over.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's the initial cost that hits you.
Yeah. Yeah, but with the budget for.
How big are the buckets?
For 5 gallons.
5 gallon?
Additional questions? Did I answer that?
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. Sorry about the situation. But yeah, that was, I understand now. So that's the part that I didn't get, yeah.
Any other additional questions on that? Okay. Moving on to the second set of new business, the 2025 budget for the Waste Reduction District.
Yeah. So I think I did email out to everybody, all of the budget sheets that were included in the July board meeting packet, that ultimately didn't happen, was canceled. And again, I have a presentation prepared for the joint meeting. It almost would have been better to have the joint meeting first, but that didn't work for a couple of board members. So, I guess so. I guess the first and foremost, the important thing, here is that whether it's now or after the joint meeting, if the CAC makes sure you have an opportunity to discuss. I mean, the statutory requirement is to provide written comments to the board before they vote on the budget. So historically, at the July meeting, the CAC has reviewed the budget proposal and, come up with some, a statement in support or, just a blanket in support of, or maybe, we're not sure about this, but in general, support the budget as a, something to that effect. That can be included in the board packet for the August meeting, so you have those comments provided before the meeting. So we just want to make sure that somewhere along the way, the CAC does at least come to a consensus on some sort of written comment that can be included in that meeting packet. So, and I don't know how much everybody has looked at, with the budget. I can say that, as a result of the budget workshop this morning, I won't even have all the details for this at the joint meeting, but some things are going to change. Some of the tax revenue numbers are changing. The property tax is actually going up a little bit. The excise and CVAT are coming down a little bit. And I think what's in what was sent to you showed about $125,000 deficit budget. I think after the meeting this morning, that was down to $120,000 deficit budget, give or take. So it's a positive impact. And, would note too, you could also see in there, the deficit is pretty much, all created by two capital line expenditures. We have $120,000 in vehicle purchases, and that is to replace our two Green Business Network trucks that are, each costing us thousands of dollars a year to keep on the road. The mechanic has advised, one of those, they've advised that next spring's DOT inspection is going to result in a substantial cost if we want them to DOT certify that truck. So those do need to be replaced. And then the other $7,000 for computer equipment purchases. People aren't aware, come next October, Microsoft is done supporting Windows 10. And so we have 5 or 6 computers of PC Max, our IT service that says those computers are not going to support Windows 11 or newer without substantial upgrades. We said we're just going to replace them. So that's where your deficit is does now. And I would also note in there, and I have it in the presentation for the joint meeting, and it was in the packet for the board meeting. We do have a proposed 7% across the board wage increase for employees, which is more, historically we followed the Midwest urban wage earners CPIU index for Midwest urban clerical wage earners. That right now is about 3.5%. But I had some additional data in that presentation, and I have it again tonight that when you look at some basic cost of living needs, fuel, gasoline, grocery costs, those things since 2020 are up 20+%. So the CPI wage index and the wages that we've been giving, over the past couple of years aren't keeping up with inflation. So it's an attempt to try to give employees a little bit more to help offset some of that cost. And just that's the proposal, and it's up to the board, and then CAC can certainly weigh in on comments if you think that's too much or too little. The other, I think something I forgot to put in the presentation for the board meeting that is in tonight's joint meeting presentation. Another thing that does include, that does budget wages for our office manager and our controller at 35 hours a week. Currently, the controller's budgeted at 30 and the office manager's budgeted at 25. And, some of it I'm sure has to do with the transition, to allow, but just in looking at, how much those two employees, are working to get what needed to be done, the end of year stuff at the beginning of this year or end of year last year. And as we've gone through the past couple of months with this loud transition, I wanted some cushion in there. That doesn't mean that the board has to authorize them to work or change those jobs to 35 hours a week, but it gives me some extra money in those lines where when we're doing the budget, where we know the controller is likely going to work over 30 hours a week. I have that cushion in there without having to rely on taking wages from what's budgeted for relief operators and stuff like that. Not that we've ever run into an issue and run out of money and couldn't pay people or anything. But, I feel a little better with that cushion in there. And in all honesty, I think the office manager probably would be better suited to go from 25 to 30 hours a week anyway. I'm sorry, I guess I can just we'll just do this and I'll do it twice. So, trying to avoid.
I think it's great that the district expanded from 3.5% to 7%. I know it's 11 to 12% on retirement contribution. Awesome.
Hey, it's letting me share. How about that? So it'll get to see this again here shortly, but
That way we'll remember it.
so maybe you can see it, but I mean, so there's a broad overview of the general classifications we have for revenues and expenses. You know, that we're showing, you know, obviously the big, two big revenue differences, the tax increases from the 4% growth quotient. And again, that's going to change slightly after this morning's meeting. The other one is the other income. It went up $119,000. I just, 100,000 of that is now budgeting the interest that we're getting off of our bank accounts. We just decided that, you know, it's the reserve balance is enough and we're maintaining a positive balance enough in there that, you know, we can be assured that interest is going to continue until the market changes and the banks change those rates. So that's the two big ones. Again, personnel services is up a good amount, and that's oh yeah, the other thing that is that personnel services was we increased are proposed to increase the retirement contribution from 11% to 12%. If you're not aware, our retirement program is fully district funded. Employees are whatever. And this is what I inherited. So I don't, forgive me that I don't know exactly. I think it's, I don't know what the number is that's on it, but it's a plan that is specific to public entities. Employees are not allowed to contribute to it. So it does have to be fully employer funded. We've been at 11% for about 8 years now, I think. For reference, the county is currently at just over 14, like 14.2% is their contribution for their employees into their plan. So we're still a little bit behind the county, but it is a little added benefit for our employees. Let's see, there's, again, those numbers are all going to change what the board sees in August. And I know that's not ideal to show you this and then say, give me comments on that, even though you know it's going to be different in 2 weeks. You know, and then I think all the individual revenue lines, you know, those kind of go up and down based on market trends and what we've realized in recent years for volumes and you know, fees that we're getting and rebates that we're getting back. So
How do you dispose of the paint other than sometimes the buckets are out there? We take them home and use them.
I mean, we have a event that goes to a hazardous waste facility. The paints, I believe, are incinerated.
Isn't that what we're going to be at the meeting here in Monroe County in October? Like it was.
They generally have representatives at the association conference. Yes, it's Heritage Environmental is who we send our paints to. They're not the only option in the state, but that's who we've used for a number of years.
So if you have more questions, come to the association meeting.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I guess, and that what we're looking at there is the revenue side of that. And we do oil and water-based paints, we don't charge for. But we do unfortunately have to charge for latex paint because of just the back end cost on us. And you know, we've got it, we bumped it up 2,000 next year. And you should have received a comparison spreadsheet or copy of a comparison spreadsheet that I emailed out to everybody, and you can just look. I mean, and that's based on, historical volumes and revenues and where we are currently year to date. And all of those things go up and down year by year. We do our best to guesstimate where it's going to be. There you can see the interest. It's not been previously budgeted for. Since we're selling orange bags at South Walnut now, we have to do sales tax on those. So we have to collect that sales tax, another new revenue line. We did bump the host fee up 20,000, based on where we are, current year to date. It does kind of make sense now that we have an agreement with the second facility in the county. Certainly wouldn't expect it to double our host fee because there's hopefully not that much waste around, but that's going to capture some waste that wasn't previously captured that would be subject to the host fee.
Do like Owen County and where some of this other waste might come from, does that get into the host fee?
Well, only Monroe, our contract says only Monroe County generated.
That's what I thought.
Subject to the host fee. With some caveats for de minimis amounts that, you bring a truck in that had 2 stops in Brown County, went through the eastern part of the county, or vice versa, 2 or 3 stops in Monroe County as it was doing the western part of Brown County. There's caveats that, we don't really worry about those de minimis amounts. They say the glass zeroes out our new contract, with Rumpke, that in the long run saves us a substantial amount of money because we're not having to haul it to Indianapolis anymore. But the flip side is they're not paying us for the glass, but it's still a positive even without that revenue. It's still a positive for the district doing it that way. Miscellaneous income. That's not something we normally budget for, but we do have a proposal from the Back to Earth program to continue the apartment composting pilot and expand that. CBU has agreed to split, if the board will agree to move forward with that. Not CBU, the city of Bloomington has agreed to split the cost of that proposal with us. So that's their half of the contract quote to continue and expand the Back to Earth program.
Congratulations on year 2.
So there we've kind of that's all the costs or the personnel services stuff that we just went through, the 7% wage increase, and there you can see some of that where we've looked at what, food costs have been, housing costs, gasoline prices, and obviously, those are all over 20%. So we're trying to help employees as much as we can with that. You guys can tell me to speed up, slow down, or, I don't know how fast or slow you want me to go through this. These are all the individual lines in that, personnel services department, and, there's what the salary, hourly wages, there's what that 7% increase, means for those 2 lines. I think I did also emailed you a sheet that should show the department breakdown for the budgets as well. Since we had a board member that asked specifically for that. Yes, Jeff, I'm picking on you because you walked in the room. And then, so then, the taxes, the unemployment, health insurance, we're not changing the health insurance budget this year. Again, that's one we've identified that is a big contributor to our reversions every year. So even though we do anticipate that there will be a premium increase, still confident that budgeted amount will manage that without any problem. We did, however, separate out for those employees that choose the health savings account insurance policy, because that saves us, it's a cheaper policy for the district. So we do contribute money when they renew that policy into their health savings account. So we separated currently at $7,000 for the employees that are enrolled in it. So we pulled that out and have a separate line to identify those health savings account contributions. So that's the 7,000 difference you see there. And then at the bottom of that chart is the HSA contributions. And he had a big jump in retirement, but that's the wage increase as well as the contribution increase from 11 to 12%. Your supplies, and I got a little minimized teams is blocking. Not a whole lot of differences in the supply lines. We do have, operating supplies or cost inflation hits us too, predominantly for our general operating. So the pretty good increase there. The other big hit in is the orange bag purchase. There's a contractual price increase for the orange bags, but that's what it is. I think it's CPI plus 3% or something like that. That's how that's worded in the contract. Services, this is a big category. There are some changes in there. The lab fees for all the sampling we do related to leachate treatment, groundwater, landfill, those fees are going to go up next year. So our consultant line, actually, based on what we had this year, it dropped a little bit because the back to earth agreement that's new in there is $25,500. It's only knocked 500 off what we had budgeted this year, and then added that proposal in there. Then the other professional services dropped this year. We had a $50,000 appropriation for composting initiatives. We've got the back to earth thing going, so we're dropping that out. And if something comes up, like partnering with doing a Kashi or whatever, we can always, for the right proposal or the right program, we can always go and seek an additional appropriation if something comes along that we, really want to support and help get going. See, hazmat physicals, or the medical services, which is our annual physicals we do for 7 employees just that work in household hazard, that work in our household hazard waste department, work out at the landfill, previously have. We just monitor things because of the potential exposures that they have. So we monitor annually. We look at arsenic. Our arsenic's at the landfill is a big one. So it's 5 vials of blood. I can tell you that from personal experience. And then honestly, that's just not properly budgeted previously. I didn't calculate it right last year, so that increase is not new employees or new expenses. I just didn't put it up in there. And we did get a new internet service provider for our admin, which is dropping that other communication charge down. It's a combination of internet and phone service. We switched providers for a voice over internet that required them to assume the internet service.
We're finding in rural transit that doesn't work the greatest.
You know what?
Doesn't work the greatest.
We've not had, other than some, new service hiccups, but, other than that first month or so, we haven't really had any problems. Pretty clean. Again, we do anticipate some, increases with our insurance. The liability increase isn't as great. Remember, we've declared a number of vehicles and equipment surplus property over the past few years, so that obviously helps with some of that decrease the premiums on some of that coverage. So, the electric is based on previous experience comes down 1,000, so we'll see what happens with Duke's proposed rate increase. The other utilities. Building repair maintenance, we do have the South Walnut facility needs 2 new AC units. And we have some windows that need replaced in the admin building. We have some things we're just going to have to do next year. Vehicle repair maintenance drops, assuming we get our new trucks. So
Are you looking at electric vehicles for your trucks?
not at this time.
Good.
We are looking at gas. We've always had diesel trucks. We're looking at gas now.
Propane or gasoline?
Gasoline.
Okay.
And then our Bobcat at South Walnut is probably moving on toward its last leg. We're going to try and ride one more year out with it because we're getting the trucks at 25 and look to replace that Bobcat in 26. But that's why that's a big chunk of that bump in machinery equipment repair and maintenance. Fee increases for snow removal, contractual increase on the Bethel Lane side. You guys can ask questions if anything jumps out at you. Our HHW disposal, some of that's volume, some of that is fee increases. And then when you get into some of this other, as we get down into this category, when we start talking about the other collection disposal contracts or hauling contract, this stuff is all based on current contractual obligations and, our current and previous experience with that, knowing that the board is considering putting that out for proposal this fall, which, but we can't budget based on what we think may or may not happen. So we're budgeting based on our current situation, knowing that there's a possibility that that's not where we'll be next spring. The glass hauling, again, it's coming down, we're not hauling to Indy anymore. And I guess also, I guess that last line there, the hauling contract, you see a good drop there. Joey Long is really making some changes at the recycling centers with how frequently we're hauling in boxes. We've started combining paper. And so, instead of having separate loads, different types of paper, we had a number of different types of paper we used to get hauled in a semi up to Indianapolis. We're now just putting those all in the paper compactor boxes because the public said that's fine, it's not going to impact anything for them or change our costs. So, it reduces our hauling. And with glass, we're in town now, and we're trying to make sure that we're not hauling one ton at a time. I guess the other, the licensing and permits, the new accounting software, substantial annual licensing fee. So we do have to budget for that. And we also are proposing a new line there at the bottom. You may have heard us talking at some meetings. We've gotten into situations with where some of our compliance cases are getting into the court system, and we're getting, court order to go in and clean the property up because the property owner is obviously not taking care of it. So the compliance department proposed a separate budget line for that to make it easier to track those costs, because what happens at that point, a lien goes out on the property, and the property owner might be nice and pay the lien off. Otherwise, until the property's sold, we're not going to get that money. So budgeting for it separately makes it a little easier to track how much of that is outstanding and what we spent on those corporate cleanups. And then we worked at their capital purchases, that we've already talked about. Questions? Complaints?
None. I'm happy with the increases for the standard of living and retirement, and that back to earth is continuing. Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Glassman, for that awesome presentation. The last order of new business is the Dalva Road cleanup. And should I pass it on to you, Bill?
Good. Thank you, Matt. We were unsuccessful in setting up anything for June. We just could not get a date when we would have enough members. So I am wondering, in August, there are no federal holidays scheduled. So it may make it easier to schedule a weekend event because people be less likely to be traveling. I will send out an email later this week asking everyone what their August availability is, and we'll try to get a date on the books for the Docker Road cleanup in August.
Sounds good. Comments, questions on that?
Appreciate the effort.
Okay, next one up is public comments. Seeing nobody online, nobody in the gallery. That will complete that. As a reminder, the next regular meeting is Thursday, August 15th, 2024 at 5:30 PM. Here in the Showers Building North, room 100B. And then if there's no objection to this meeting adjourning, we will adjourn. Any objections?
I just note for anybody that might be online that the upcoming joint meeting immediately following this does have a separate Teams link. So we will close this Teams link and rejoin on the joint meeting.
Thank you. Okay, staying, no objections, this meeting is adjourned.